hell is even that?
Welcome back to Clownfish. In today's video, we'll look at some of the most liberal cities in the world and why many would argue they've been turned into full-on dystopias. To start us off, here's the mayor of Toronto's horrifying response to hearing about a rise of carjackings in her city. As always, stick around to the end for the recap, this week's woke news and much, much more.
Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow joins me now in studio. Mayor, thanks for coming in.
Hello.
So there was a New York Times article, and this was the headline recently, "For car thieves, Toronto is a candy store." What do you make of the fact that Toronto has this reputation?
I guess we have a lot of candies. We have a lot of good cars here in Toronto.
Now, this is the same mayor who imposed a rain tax on Canadians for the sewage draining systems that clear up their rainwater. It's no surprise she doesn't have the slightest care for her citizens' safety or the fact they're getting robbed. But that's nothing compared to what the Toronto police chief has in mind to fix this issue of car theft. See if you can make it through this next one with a straight face.
Lefty Lunacy Canada, James. What did the police there come up with?
Well, yeah, you know, it's a pretty wild place up in Canada. They want you to put your car keys out. Have a look at this here from the Toronto police chief.
To prevent the possibility of being attacked in your home, leave your fobs at your front door. Because they're breaking into your home to steal your car. They don't want anything else. A lot of them that they're arresting have guns on them, and they're not toy guns, they're real guns. They're loaded.
So there you have it. If you live in Toronto, just leave your car keys by the front door. In fact, probably don't even bother locking your front door. In fact, why not just leave the whole place unlocked? Put your jewelry out on the front porch.
So having established that Toronto's police force are about as useless as a paper bag in a rainstorm, I solemnly vote that we reassign this police officer to be a security guard at Walmart. And as most of you know, cities all across America are seeing rampant theft as well, largely because of liberal policies that don't do anything to deter theft. Now, when politicians turn a blind eye to stuff like this in their city, it's only going to make big corporations and small businesses think twice before opening up a location there. Here's the founder of Telegram explaining why he ultimately decided against setting up in San Francisco.
So you go from Germany to Singapore to London to San Francisco. What happened in San Francisco?
Well, in San Francisco, we really thought that would be the place for us to be in because all the tech companies are there or around San Francisco. And there were two things that happened that made us think twice. Well, one thing is pretty obvious. I was in San Francisco. I got attacked on the street after visiting, I think it was Jack Dorsey in Twitter, in the Twitter's office. And I was walking back at 8 p.m. To my hotel, and I got attacked in the street. This is the only country where I got attacked in the street.
What happened?
Just three big guys tried to grab my phone from my hands. I was tweeting about the fact that I just met the founder of Twitter.
Now, you can't really blame him for wanting to set up elsewhere. No rational business owner wants to set up shop in a crime-ridden city with politicians that don't care. And besides looting and violence, homelessness is also a big issue that's plaguing many liberal cities in particular. Here's one of many residents in California that found themselves getting a first-hand taste of that.
Bro, these homeless people have been living behind our house for like 3 days now.
Now, while it is important to have empathy for others, governments and citizens alike should definitely not be okay with homeless tents being set up right on the doorstep of residential areas with families. But if you thought that was bad, listen to how this homeowner in New York was even arrested for trying to physically remove squatters from her house.
house. Yes, you are.
How about that? A squatter standoff. A property owner confronts a group of people she says moved into her $1 million home in Queens, and our cameras were rolling as dozens of officers showed up.
Several people were taken away in handcuffs, and one of those arrested may surprise you.
Investigative reporter Dan Krauth joins us now with more on what happened. Tell us, Dan.
Well, this is a very big growing problem. I received dozens of tips from viewers about this in just the past week. I went to do what I thought was going to be a routine interview. Instead, we capture what police and property owners are dealing with on a daily basis.
I have video of you. Who are these people? Figure out the situation. Yeah, but they're in my house, man. Relax. No.
To understand how this day ended,
We need the police right away.
with multiple 911 calls and arrests, we have to start at the beginning.
Adele, the hardest question is, how do you say your name?
We met Adele Andaloro outside the home her parents left her in Flushing, Queens. She's in the process of selling it.
No, he locked it.
But she's been locked out. She claims squatters moved in on February 6th and refused to leave.
What's it like being here knowing you can't go inside of your own home?
It's enraging. It really is.
In New York, squatters have rights after 30 days.
By the time that someone does their investigation and they do their work and their job, we'll be well over the 30 days, and this man will have stolen my home. And now she's back.
Just after wrapping up our interview, a woman showed up.
What are you doing in the house? Are you renting this house? Why are you here?
They don't care whose toes they step on.
Now, I don't know what kind of backward liberal policies gave so much power to squatters, but if anyone can explain how this rule makes any sense in the comments, I'd be all ears. But speaking of things that don't make any sense, we see in our next clip that some American universities like UCLA are starting to make some rather interesting changes to their curriculum.
I don't like the sound of this one.
Now, I'm just hoping this particular class is an outlier, because paying 80 grand for that level of college tuition just seems like a crime in itself. And another warning for younger folks watching this, our final clip shows Democrat politicians will do literally anything to get re-elected, including targeting younger voters via social media. Listen to this influencer explaining how and why she was paid by the Joe Biden administration.
Lucked out, and then, TikTok was basically full-time for me. I think I was taking ads by the time I graduated college from like the Biden administration and Planned Parenthood and like dating apps and stuff. So it was like fully financially, sustaining.
So you were getting, the Biden administration was buying ads from you?
Yeah, I was doing full-on political propaganda.
And they would just, really, with like what kind of like Biden created 10 million jobs?
Yeah, honestly. And the funny thing is, they're like, do not disclose this is an ad, because, they're like, technically it's not a product, so you don't have to disclose it's an ad. Because I think they just wanted like some edgy girl of color to just tell people, like when they nominated like Ketanji Brown Jackson, they're like, can you say like as a person of color, that you feel reflected? And it's like a white woman emailing this to me, and she's like giving me this script, and I'm like, no. And she's like, please. And I'm like, no, I'll like talk about the news of it, but I'm not gonna have a white person tell me to be like, this is how I feel as a person of color. Like, it's just so, I think that black-pilled me.
Now, I'm sure there are plenty of other influencers who could come forward and tell a similar story. The most important thing to remember here is that none of this will change unless people's voting patterns change. We've seen a whole host of issues in today's clips, ranging from lootings and robbery to rampant homelessness. And worst of all, politicians who couldn't care less. It's sadly a very common sight that people have come to associate with liberal cities. And that's not to say conservative cities are utopias. After all, every city has its own unique issues. But you wouldn't be wrong to assume more folks are leaving so-called blue states for red ones, as opposed to the other way round. In fact, the latest numbers from the Census Bureau data show that over the last few years, there have been big movements from people out of major blue states like California and New York. In 2022, roughly 4.6 million people left blue states compared to just 3.7 million a decade ago. But red states saw a pretty minimal change in terms of people migrating out, staying at around the 3.3 million level they recorded over a decade ago. So broadly speaking, that means every year we're seeing a net swing of 1 million folks from blue states to red, many of whom are settling in swing states like Michigan and Pennsylvania. I don't think anyone needs to be told how important voting is to the future of any country, but I do think a lot of countries are at a critical point where its citizens need to decide which direction they want to head towards. And again, feel free to let me know if you disagree in the comments. There's a lot more that goes into people's voting preferences than what we've covered today. and I'm curious to hear how you all feel about the upcoming election. But as always, thanks for watching and supporting this channel, and I'll see you all next week.